Welcome to my weekly podcast, Later That Same Life. I'm Larry Fedoruk, sharing topics, thoughts, opinions, and stories from our lives.
Season 4, Chapter 11.
Toxic
Masculinity.
Toxic masculinity. The term has come up again recently. It's not a new term. Some sources say it was first coined by lecturer, writer, educator Shepard Bliss in describing his father back in 2010. The origin may not be completely relevant to the discussion, but I'm always interested in that. How terms get started, where and by whom, and how they become part of the language. Check out my recent podcast called Lexicon. It's about the vocabularies of our day. I will delve more into the meaning of toxic masculinity as we go through the podcast. But for starters, the quick definition. Toxic masculinity involves the aspects we associate in modern society with being masculine, but then some manifest themselves into negative, hurtful fashion. Being masculine on its own, not toxic, but certain bad behavior as a result is. So the term itself has been around for a little over a decade, but the behavior has been with us for centuries. We probably could have used a good term like this back when the first rogue cowboy continued to force himself upon the saloon girl, even as she fought off his unwanted advances, until, of course, she melted in his arms. Toxic cowboy man. He was right all along, wasn't he? He knew she really wanted him, or at least that was so often the movie portrayal. And well into the 20th century, date rape. It was the manly thing. Toxic masculinity, portrayed and validated and rewarded. Traits of toxic masculinity, as shown to us in the media, were not limited to sexism, misogyny, and the abuse of women. Hey, why stop there? When there's also bullying, harassment, violence, homophobia, and in general, unhealthy, competitive, and predatory behavior. So many of our on-screen heroes were set up to be just that. I always wondered if Sean Connery ever second-guessed his sexual assault scene as James Bond in the movie Goldfinger. And remember, in the movies, Bond was not the villain. He was allegedly the good guy. He raped women. Just the bad ones, of course. The good ones apparently slept with him willingly. Tony Soprano. Now, he was a bad guy, but how many guys watching will admit that they loved Tony Soprano? Because Tony Soprano used any nefarious means at his disposal to do and get whatever he wanted. Poster boy for toxic masculinity. Yeah, but how many guys secretly envied him? And I know, it didn't end well for Tony Soprano. The classic, living, breathing, walking, talking, real-life example of toxic masculinity is, of course, Donald Trump. Men acting badly, and he is their leader. At least in the free world. In the despot world, it is, of course, Vladimir Putin. So this term, toxic masculinity, as I mentioned, has recently re-entered the lexicon. And miracle of miracles, it wasn't because of something Donald Trump did. I mean, I imagine he did something that would warrant it. But no, it was the action of one Will Smith that brought back this discussion. Will Smith. The slap at the Oscars.
Uh-oh, Richard! Oh, wow! Wow!
I know we're not still talking about that, or we are still talking about that, but really, what we are talking about is toxic behavior of men who think that this is what it means to be a man. It all happened at this poor, outdated, mostly irrelevant, struggling awards show. The one that most people no longer watch or even care about. A lot of people wouldn't have known the Oscars was on that Sunday if Will Smith hadn't assaulted Chris Rock. Way to go, Will. You put the Academy Awards back on the radar with your stunning performance. I'm sure you know by now what happened, but here's a quick recap. Chris Rock, who was host of the Oscars in 2016, this year was just one of the presenters. Best documentary. He is a comedian. He comes out and directs a joke at Will's wife, actor Jada Pinkett Smith, who is seated with Best Actor nominee Will near the front of the stage.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right?
The joke was about Jada's Army-style buzz cut hairdo, which is a result of alopecia, a disease that can cause hair loss. Will takes great offense, wanders right onto the stage. A quizzical Chris Rock watches him approach.
Uh-oh, Richard. Oh, wow.
And bam!
Wow.
Big slap across the face. Chris Rock reacts.
Wow. Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me.
Somehow he carries on.
That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay.
Will Smith sits down and continues to heckle him from the crowd.
His name out your f***ing mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
It was a G.I. Jane jump.
Keep my wife's name out your f***ing mouth.
I'm going to, okay?
What just happened? Then, within half an hour, Will Smith is back up on stage, this time accepting the Oscar for Best Performance by an actor in a leading role for his portrayal of the Tennis Williams sisters' father in the film King Richard. Tears of joy and gratitude.
This is a beautiful moment, and I'm not crying for winning an award. It's not about winning an award for me.
So even before all of these toxic masculinity accusations began to surface, I had a lot of questions about this. The big one being the mental stability of Will Smith.
Art imitates life. I look like the crazy father, just like they said. I look like crazy father, just like they said about Richard Williams. But love will make you do crazy things.
First of all, Will Smith, you're not new. You're 53 years old, and you've been in the entertainment business for almost a quarter of a century. You'd think by now you would know how to conduct yourself. Oh, I'm sure he was on an emotional high that night. You're at the Oscars. You are a favored nominee in a high-profile category. It could be a career pinnacle moment. And then suddenly, in 2 seconds, you're in a blind rage over a lame comment.
Keep my wife's name out your f***ing mouth.
A rage that motivates you to violence, even though you know the entire world is watching. Less than a half an hour after that, tears of joy, thanking your movie family.
All of the people, Tim and Trevor and Zach and Sanaya and Demi and Ingenue and the entire cast and crew of King Richard and Venus and Serena, the entire Williams family.
That is not a stable individual. I know. Actors, they are sometimes known to be high-strung, all over the map. That is what makes them such good actors. But, wow, Will Smith, not sure what meds you are not on, but get some. Fill the prescription. Follow the directions on the label. Even out, man. I also wonder, he chose the slap. Not a fist, not poking a finger in Rock's chest while uttering some choice words. That also would have been inappropriate, but not as violent. No, it was a slap. It's the humiliation factor. A fist is violence. A slap is violence, but with added humiliation. Oh, and of course, he didn't choose it. He just reacted. Ergo, It looked like that wasn't the first time he just up and slapped somebody. Just saying. Oh, and don't say bitch slap, which I've heard people call it. Bitch slap is a misogynistic term, just in case you weren't thinking about that. And hey, what if it was, say, Amy Schumer up there telling the joke? What would Will Smith have done then? Members of the black community have since lamented about the sadness of witnessing the black-on-black violence. Well, obviously, I'm not qualified to comment on that. But yeah, since it has been raised, what if Will Smith slapped a white comic? Or what if a white comic slapped Will Smith? People would be talking about the added tension of the encounter. Well, none of that happened, but race has definitely become part of the discussion in racist America. Person-on-person violence, without all of the other factors and discussions, is bad enough. Will Smith has apologized a number of times to a lot of different people and organizations.
I want to apologize to the Academy. I want to apologize to all my fellow nominees.
This is not the person I want to be. I'm still a work in progress. Yeah, I guess, because at age 53, you still don't get that this is not how we sort out our problems. And from his point of view, I get it. Words matter. They can hurt. They can cut like a knife. Will Smith brought a gun to a knife fight, and he keeps on apologizing to the point where at times I almost believe him. So Will Smith goes from the Fresh Prince to the King of Pain. His actions are widely condemned, seemingly by most people. But guess what? This is divided America. This is us swimming around in split world soup. And sure enough, there is a contingent of the populace who applauds him, including, astonishingly, women. Some women. Oh my God, Will Smith, what a hero. I wish my man stood up for me like that. Seriously? Sorry, can't agree with that. That kind of mentality just feeds the toxic masculinity and this ancient code of the weak, defenseless, hapless little woman who needs protection by her man. That's just not healthy. Now, if anyone, man or woman, is in some sort of real peril, it is reasonable to expect that others around them might step in to offer assistance if required, instead of, say, automatically resorting to violence. But this was way beyond that, wasn't it? Remember, Chris Rock didn't physically assault anyone. We're talking about a jibe, a joke, not even a very good one. I've heard some people say that Chris Rock shouldn't have even done that joke. Yeah, maybe. Point is, he did. And it was pretty much harmless until toxic masculinity cut in. Rock handled it beautifully. The show must go on. And afterward, it was Rock who insisted that no charges be pressed, even though that was well within his rights. Rock has since said that he needs some time to process all of this, and that one day he will talk about it, and it'll be serious and funny. I'm sure he will find the words, and the bit will be both. That slap was textbook toxic masculinity. I suspect based on a culture of it ingrained in the psyche, a partial result of watching it for years and years positively portrayed in our media. And remember this, the term was coined by a man describing his father, which means it can also be passed down. Sometimes even if we see the negatives in our own upbringing, we can still wake up one day and find that we've become our parents. Not always, but it can happen. And here we are, a society filled with men who don't get what it means to be a man. Aha! So, what does it take to be a man? What does it mean to be a man?
What makes a man, Mr. Lebowski?
Dude.
Huh?
I don't know, sir.
Is it being prepared to do the right thing, whatever the cost? Isn't that what makes a man?
Sure, that and a pair of testicles.
That and a pair of testicles. The Big Lebowski movie. That's the dude abiding. Getting it said. A pair of testicles. Except now, the more we understand about gender, that's not even true anymore. You know, for decades we had stereotypical roles and social assignments that helped us define what is a man, what is a woman. We know better now, or at least we should. It's much more complicated. But you know, not so much so that you couldn't just take a few minutes to figure it out.
Strong men also cry. Strong men also cry.
Feminism was a movement that first sought to question those roles and to show them up for what they were. Social constructs, mistakes, unfair, and then to try and change them. Feminism around for at least a century, and guess what? It's still a work in progress. How sad. You know, as feminism grew in the 1970s, the male response was, "You've come a long way, baby." Remember that? It was a slogan for a cigarette ad, an acknowledgement of the growth of the movement. But we still call you baby. I'll just bet that was written by a man. You know, because no chick would say that, right? But it got worse, oh, much worse. By the 80s and 90s, a man's movement began. We had lost our balls, apparently, and we had to get them back. This movement was not the beginning of the toxic male culture. As I pointed out, that has been around forever. But it was a glaring example of the male of the species misunderstanding the feminist movement, did not get the premise, and then reacted badly. Very, very, very badly. And then Tony Soprano, Donald Trump, Will Smith. And here we are, talking about toxic masculinity. I'm sure for some the term will sound like psychobabble, over-analysis, mumbo-jumbo. You know, everything does, until you take the time to learn it. Socially, emotionally, psychologically, we still don't really get what it means to be a man or to be a woman. At least not en masse. Let me just say this, it's not that difficult to figure out what it means to be a decent human being. Be respectful, caring, compassionate, understanding, brave, relentless, dedicated, fair, mindful, empathetic, kind. Are any of those things specifically masculine or feminine? Some of us have different body parts. Some of us identify differently despite those body parts. Some of us prefer a different gender to interact with, others not. There are not just two genders. So in many ways the concepts of masculine and feminine are outdated. And yet old school macho BS still have many people thinking that masculinity is necessary in order to save the world. And at certain times, and for some, it becomes toxic. There is a line between the things we associate with being a man and the things that make us toxic. We can be brave without trying to be dominant. We can be honest and straightforward without being aggressive. We can be sexual without the objectification. We can be stoic without being emotionally distant. We can be humble without feeling emasculated. And really, again, I've just described qualities that could apply to any human being, man, woman, other. To repeat, masculinity itself is not toxic. If you have some vague concept of manhood as hair on the chest, deep voice, being good at sports, driving a pickup truck that's so huge it blocks the sun, and taking a gun into the forest to hunt for dinner, well, I guess go with it. It's not those things, it's the bad behavior that makes you toxic. Well, not you, but, Will Smith.
Later That Same Life is written, produced, and voiced by Larry Fedoruk. Larry Fedoruk, 37 @gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.
That was greatest night in the history of television. Okay.
Strong men also cry. Strong men also cry.